They laughed at him. That's how this story begins. A young Filipino inventor standing in front of a room full of experts who didn't believe a word he said. Some rolled their eyes, some whispered to one another, a few even chuckled out loud. But months later, the same invention they dismissed, the same idea they said was impossible, was the very thing NASA asked him to demonstrate. Why did NASA suddenly care? What did this Filipino scientist build? And why did so many people fail to see its potential? Let's go back to the beginning. Our story starts in a small town in the Philippines, where a curious young boy named Daniel grew up surrounded by tools, spare parts, and a mind that never stopped asking questions. Daniel wasn't rich. He didn't have a fancy lab. He didn't have expensive equipment. What he did have was curiosity, the kind that can't be bought or taught. He would take apart broken radios, old flashlights, and even kitchen appliances just to understand how they worked. Sometimes he put them back together successfully. Other times he didn't, and his parents would scold him gently. But even when he failed, Daniel noticed patterns. He learned things no textbook could have taught him. Years passed, and Daniel became a full-grown scientist with a growing interest in energy. His country had frequent power outages, especially in rural areas. People struggled. Businesses stopped. Students couldn't study at night. Families sat in the dark waiting for electricity to return. Daniel wondered, what if there was a way to create energy that didn't depend on fuel, sunlight, wind, or huge machines? Something small, something simple, something that could help anyone. And then, after countless experiments and plenty of frustration, it happened. Daniel built a device that could generate power in a way that seemed almost magical. It didn't need traditional fuel. It didn't burn anything. It didn't require complex wiring. It used principles of electromagnetic resonance, a concept many people don't fully understand, making the invention look suspiciously like a miracle box. When Daniel showed it to people, some were amazed, but many others felt threatened. How could someone create power out of something so simple? Why hadn't massive corporations done it? Why hadn't global scientists created anything similar? Surely, they said, Daniel must be exaggerating. Soon, word spread, and Daniel was invited to present his invention to a panel of engineers and researchers. This was supposed to be his big chance. But what he walked into felt more like a trap. Before he even began, he noticed the looks. Some members of the panel already seemed convinced that this young Filipino scientist was wasting their time. They expected another too-good-to-be-true claim. Still, Daniel stayed calm. He explained the science behind his device using diagrams he had drawn by hand because he couldn't afford professionally printed ones. He demonstrated the device generating power strong enough to light up bulbs and run small equipment. But instead of applause, he heard laughter. A few panelists whispered, "This can't be real." Others questioned every small detail, not out of curiosity but out of disbelief. Some dismissed him entirely. One even compared his invention to a children's science fair project. That was the last straw. The panel rejected his proposal, leaving Daniel with nothing but disappointment and a device he believed in more than anyone. Imagine working on something for years, pouring your heart and mind into it, only to be laughed at. Have you ever experienced something like that, working hard on an idea only for people to doubt you? If yes, drop your story in the comments. Despite the rejection, Daniel didn't stop. That night, sitting alone in his small workshop, he made a decision. He would keep improving his invention, whether people believed in him or not. He told himself that if the world wasn't ready, he would prepare it. Weeks passed, then months. Daniel kept testing, refining, upgrading, and slowly, the device became more efficient, more stable, more impressive. He began documenting his results, sharing them with a small online community of engineers from different countries. They were fascinated. Some asked questions, some gave advice, others simply encouraged him. And then came an unexpected email. It was from a researcher working with NASA. They had seen discussions about Daniel's project online. They wanted more information. They wanted to see detailed data. And eventually, they wanted a live demonstration. Daniel thought it was a prank at first. Why would NASA, a world-leading space agency, care about the invention people had laughed at? But the email was real, and the invitation was genuine. He traveled with nothing but a suitcase, and his invention packed carefully inside. When he arrived, he expected another room filled with skeptics. But instead, he found a group of scientists who were curious, open-minded, and respectful. They asked him to demonstrate the device. So he did. This time, no one laughed. This time, the room was silent. The bulbs lit up. The instruments detected clean, stable output. The device ran smoothly. Everything worked exactly as Daniel said it would. One of the researchers leaned forward and said, "We underestimated this. We want to run more tests." And that moment changed Daniel's life. News began to spread. A Filipino scientist who had been ignored at home was suddenly being recognized abroad. Interviews followed. Invitations poured in. Universities wanted him to give talks. Tech companies wanted partnerships. And the same people who laughed at him earlier? They quietly disappeared. But Daniel wasn't interested in fame. His dream was the same as always, helping people. His invention had the potential to provide low-cost power to areas that desperately needed it. Poor communities, disaster-stricken regions, remote schools, small hospitals, places where traditional electricity could not reliably reach. At this point in the story, let me ask you something important. Do you think the world ignores good ideas simply because they don't come from big-name countries or famous institutions? Share your thoughts below. I want to read your answers. As the world discovered Daniel's invention, debates exploded. Some still doubted him. Others admired him. Some wanted to use his invention for profit, while he wanted it used for public good. NASA continued working with him, exploring possible applications in off-grid environments and even potential use in space missions, where compact and efficient energy systems could be life-saving. Through all of this, Daniel remained humble. He remembered the workshops where he fixed broken radios. He remembered the people who told him he'd never amount to anything. He remembered the laughter, and he remembered how many times he almost quit. There's a question I want to ask you now. Has there ever been a moment when you felt close to giving up, yet something inside you told you to keep going? What pushed you forward? Tell me in the comments. I genuinely want to know your story. And if you're enjoying this documentary, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video. Your support helps more people discover inspiring stories like this one. As Daniel's invention gained more attention, he faced another challenge: protecting it. Some companies tried to imitate it. Others tried to claim they had invented something similar first. But Daniel had been careful. He documented everything. His notes, recordings, calculations, and timestamps became his shield. And yet, he didn't let fear stop him from sharing his knowledge. He started holding workshops for young Filipino students, telling them that science wasn't just for people with fancy labs. Science was for anyone who had curiosity, patience, and courage. One day, during a workshop, a student asked him, "Sir, what did you feel when they laughed at you?" Daniel paused, then smiled gently and said, "It hurt, but it also motivated me. Sometimes laughter is just someone else's fear disguised as a joke." That sentence stayed with the students, and maybe it stays with you too. Because in life, many dreams are crushed not by failure, but by the fear of being laughed at. So here's another question for you. If nobody could laugh at you, absolutely nobody, what is the one idea you would chase? Think about it deeply and share your answer in the comments. You might inspire someone else who reads it. Daniel's invention is still evolving today. NASA continues exploring its potential. Researchers around the world are studying the principles behind it. And back home, more and more Filipinos are discovering pride in a scientist who didn't let rejection define his fate. His story teaches us that innovation doesn't always come from billion-dollar laboratories. Sometimes it comes from someone working alone in a small workshop with big dreams and bigger courage. They laughed at a Filipino scientist's invention. But in the end, he had the last laugh, not out of revenge, but out of triumph. And now, I want to leave you with one final question. Do you believe that breakthroughs can come from the most unexpected places, even from people others overlook? Tell me your thoughts in the comment section. If you found this story inspiring, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video so more people can learn about incredible minds like Daniel's. Your support helps keep stories like this alive. And remember, sometimes the world won't believe in you. But that's okay, because all you need is to believe in your idea long enough for the world to catch up.